Hey, welcome back. Go ahead and dim the lights, get comfortable, and let the day fall off your shoulders. I've got 3 stories for you tonight, drifting from the loneliest edge of a spacecraft to a signal nobody could ever explain. Stay with me till the end if you can, because that last one has been living rent-free in my head for a week. I had been alone for 11 months when the coffee machine started making cups for 2. I want to be clear before I go any further. I was the only living soul aboard the deep survey vessel Ardent, 4 billion kilometers past the last relay, on a slow arc back toward home after the outer station went dark. There was no one else. I had counted the beds, the suits, the ration packs. 1 of everything, times 1. So when I floated into the galley that morning and found 2 mugs snapped into the dispenser cradle, both filled, both warm, I told myself the machine had glitched. I dumped the second cup, wiped the ring it left, and got on with my checks. The Ardent talked to me in soft chimes and a running list of numbers, and for 11 months, those numbers had been my only conversation. Oxygen good, reactor steady, distance to home, a figure so large it stopped meaning anything. The next morning, there were 2 mugs again. And the second one was empty. Now, isolation does things. I knew that going in. They warn you that the mind, starved of other minds, starts building company out of nothing. A shadow at the edge of the hab, a voice under the hum of the fans. I had a protocol for it. Sleep, exercise, talk out loud to keep the machinery of speech from rusting. So I did all that, and I told myself the empty cup was me, sleepwalking, drinking in a fog I didn't remember. But I started leaving the cameras running while I slept. What I saw on the playback was myself floating up in the dark cycle, moving to the galley with my eyes half open, taking that second cup and drinking it down. Just me. Nobody else in the frame. I almost laughed with relief. Sleepwalking. Solved. Except, and this is the part I keep circling, in the footage I was talking. Murmuring the whole time to the empty seat across from me. And I was smiling in a way I have never smiled at an empty room in my life. I slowed the audio down. It took me 3 days to clean it up enough to hear. My own sleeping voice, patient and gentle, saying the same thing over and over like I was comforting someone. It said, "You made it. You made it. We're almost home." That was when I checked the crew manifest one more time, the original one, from before the outer station went dark, and I found the thing I had been protecting myself from for 11 months. There were 2 names on the launch roster, mine and a second one I could not read without my chest going tight. A name I had scrubbed from every log by hand, 1 entry at a time, in the first weeks. When the pain was a live wire and forgetting was the only way to keep flying. I hadn't set out alone. The station going dark wasn't a place. It was a moment. There had been an accident during the docking, in the airlock, and only 1 suit came back inside. The sleeping part of me never accepted that. Every night, in the dark cycle, it kept making a second cup of coffee for the person it refused to leave behind. Every night, it sat across from an empty seat and promised we were almost home. And every morning, the waking part of me poured that promise down the drain and pretended it was a glitch. I don't dump the second cup anymore. I let it sit there while I run my checks, warm, then cold. The numbers on the screen tick down. That impossible distance shrinking a hair at a time. Oxygen good, reactor steady, distance to home still enormous, but smaller than yesterday. And sometimes, when the fans go quiet, I catch myself talking to the seat. I've stopped correcting it. Wherever I'm going, I'd rather not arrive alone. My grandfather spent the last year of his life recording a single star, and the night he died, it stopped blinking for exactly 12 hours. He wasn't an astronomer. Not really. He'd been a lineman for the power company for 40 years, a man who understood cables and voltage and the way current wants to move. When his hands got too shaky for the work, he bought a modest telescope off a classified ad and pointed it at a faint star most people have never heard of. One of those stars that had, a few years back, briefly confused the professionals by dimming in a pattern nobody expected. The kind of thing that gets a wave of wild headlines and then a quiet, ordinary explanation. Grandpa didn't want the ordinary explanation, he wanted his own numbers. So every clear night for a year, he sat in the cold on his back porch, logging how bright that star was, minute by minute, in a spiral notebook with a pen tied to it by a string. When I visited, I'd sit with him and he'd show me the dips. The star would fade, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot, then come back. Dust, the experts said. A ragged cloud of debris orbiting far out, passing between us and the light. Perfectly natural, perfectly explainable. But Grandpa noticed something the headlines never mentioned. The dips weren't random. He'd spent his life reading current, and he swore the star was dimming in a rhythm. Long, long, short. Pause. Long, long, short. Like a signal repeating on a line. He'd tap it out on the porch rail with his knuckle and grin at me like we shared a secret. And I'd smile back and think sweetly that a lonely old man had found a friend in the sky. The explanation is dust. I want to say that plainly because it almost certainly is. A star is a nuclear furnace unimaginably far away. And a scrap of rock drifting across it does not care about a widower on a porch in a folding chair. That's the truth an honest person tells. Here is the other truth. The night Grandpa's heart gave out, I was sitting right beside him. He'd waved off the hospital that afternoon, said he wanted one more clear night. The star was in one of its long fades when his breathing changed. I held his hand and I watched the little brightness read out on his laptop, because I didn't know where else to look, and the number sat flat and low and did not move. The star stayed dim. It stayed dim while the paramedics came and while they stopped trying, and while I sat alone in the dark, not knowing what to do with my body. According to his own logs, that fade lasted 12 hours, the longest one he ever recorded, by far. And then, near dawn, the light came back up to normal, smooth and steady, as if a hand had lifted off a switch. I kept the notebook. I've shown the numbers to people who actually know the sky, and every one of them has given me a kind, reasonable answer. Debris clumps unevenly. A long dip is not impossible. The rhythm he heard is the human brain doing what it always does, finding a face in the clouds, a pattern in the static, a message in the noise. I believe them, I do, but I've started sitting on his porch on clear nights with his telescope and his spiral notebook and the pen on its string. And I log the star, minute by minute, the way he did. Long, long, short. Pause. Long, long, short. My knuckle taps the rail without me deciding to. Last week, the fade came deep and slow, deeper than usual, and I felt my breath catch the way his did at the end. I said his name out loud to the empty yard, and I swear, I know how this sounds, the light came back up early, gentle, like an answer, like someone far away had heard me and didn't want me sitting in the dark alone. The day the sun didn't set on time, everyone assumed it was their clocks. It was 4 minutes. Just 4. The evening it happened, I was walking home, and I noticed the light lingering, gold and low, longer than it had any right to for that time of year. I checked my phone. My phone said the sun should already be gone. I shrugged. Phones are wrong sometimes. Everyone shrugged. The next morning, the sun came up 4 minutes late as well, and the day after that it was 7. The scientists were careful at first. They talked in ranges and error bars and asked everyone to stay calm, which of course made nobody calm. But the numbers didn't lie, and the numbers meant the impossible. The Earth was slowing down. Not falling, not veering off course, nothing so dramatic. Just turning a little more sluggishly on its axis each day, the way a spinning top loses its nerve. Here is what I never understood before that year, and understand far too well now. Our whole idea of a day, of morning and evening, of when to sleep and when to rise, rests on the quiet assumption that the planet under our feet keeps its rhythm forever. We never thank it. We never even think about it. It just spins, and the sun comes up, and we get to be annoyed by our alarms. By the 3rd month, the day was 26 hours long. It sounds gentle written down. It was not gentle to live. Crops planted for one length of daylight baked or froze. The tides came wrong. Whole cities kept old clocks running out of stubbornness, refusing to admit that noon had drifted into what used to be afternoon. My mother, who was old and set in her ways, insisted on eating dinner at 6 by the clock, even when 6 by the clock landed in bright afternoon sun, because she said if she let go of that, she'd have nothing to hold. No one could say why it was happening. There were theories. Something had passed close, they thought, or something had changed in the great molten heart of the planet, or some vast slow tide from a body we couldn't see was dragging on us like a hand on a merry-go-round. Every theory was a guess dressed up in mathematics. What everyone agreed on, quietly, in the parts of the news they didn't say out loud, was that if the slowing kept on, one side of the Earth would eventually face the sun and stay there, a day that never ended, a night that never did either. And it kept on. 30 hours, 40. By the second year, the sun would sit near the horizon for what felt like a lifetime. That long gold light that used to make me happy now stretched thin and strange. People moved. There began a slow migration toward the twilight band, the ring around the planet where the sun neither cooked you nor abandoned you. A soft, eternal dusk that circled the world. That's where I live now, in the endless evening. Here's the thing I came to tell you, the thing I turn over on the long, long nights. We were never promised the spin. We inherited it, free from the accident of how our world was born, from a collision unthinkably ancient that set us turning and let us keep the momentum for 4.5 billion years. 4.5 billion years of sunrises we did nothing to earn, and we spent every one of them assuming the next was owed to us. So when people ask me, in the perpetual dusk, whether I'm bitter, I tell them the truth. I'm not. I got to live in the age of days. I got mornings, real ones, the sun climbing fast and certain, coffee going cold while I wasted the light. Billions of them, spread across everyone who came before me, and I got my share. The slowing may stop. It may not. But I don't lie awake dreading the still, silent world we might become. I lie awake grateful, in the long gold light, that the top ever spun at all. Sleep easy out there. And before you drift off, let me know down in the comments which of these three stayed with you the longest.